Kai Madison Trump wasn't just any college student. As the eldest granddaughter of the sitting President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the daughter of Donald Trump Jr. and Vanessa Hayden, she carried a unique mix of public scrutiny and private expectations. But beyond her famous lineage, Kai was a fierce competitor on the golf course and a young woman of deep, unwavering faith. The campus she attended, an elite university known for its academic rigor and spirited intellectual debates, was a world apart from the glitz and glamour of her family's spotlight. Here, she was just Kai, a diligent student, a passionate golfer, and someone who quietly held her Christian faith close even when it wasn't always popular to do so. One chilly autumn afternoon, Kai found herself seated in the largest lecture hall on campus. The professor, Dr. Leonard Hargrove, was a renowned philosophy scholar with a reputation for being sharp-tongued and skeptical of anything remotely religious. His lectures often challenged students to question everything, particularly faith and spirituality. That day's topic was faith and reason, can they coexist? A subject that had sparked countless debates and controversies in academic circles. As Dr. Hargrove paced the stage, his voice carried a mix of sarcasm and intellectual bravado. Faith, he began, is the surrender to the unknown, a leap into the absurd. It demands belief without evidence, a suspension of critical thinking. As scholars, we must reject such notions if we are to truly understand reality. Kai sat silently, her hands folded in her lap. She had heard this before. People, especially in elite academic settings, often dismissed faith as naive or outdated. But she had never wavered. Her faith was not blind, it was tested and true, something that gave her strength in moments of doubt. As Dr. Hargrove continued, he singled out a few students for their input. Students who echoed his skepticism or tried to navigate the difficult questions. Then, unexpectedly, his gaze landed on Kai. Miss Trump, he said with a smirk, you're well known on campus for your golfing achievements, but I'm curious, how do you reconcile your athletic success and your intellectual pursuits with this faith of yours? Surely, as a young woman of reason, you must see the flaws in believing in something intangible. The hall quieted. All eyes turned to Kai. The challenge was clear. Kai met Dr. Hargrove's gaze steadily. She had anticipated this moment long before it arrived. With a calm, measured voice, she replied, Professor Hargrove, I understand the skepticism. I've wrestled with questions myself. But faith isn't about abandoning reason. It's about embracing truths that reason alone cannot fully explain. The professor chuckled, shaking his head. Oh, please. That's a poetic way of saying, I don't have the answers. Kai smiled softly, then spoke one simple line that would silence the professor and echo through the auditorium. Sometimes, Professor, it's not about having the answers but trusting the one who does. The words hung in the air, heavy and profound. For a moment, even the professor seemed taken aback, his usual smugness fading into an unspoken pause. The lecture hall remained still after Kai's words. The usual murmur of students shifting in their seats was absent, replaced by a rare, almost reverent silence. Dr. Leonard Hargrove, known for his razor-sharp critiques and quick wit, found himself momentarily unarmed. The simple yet profound statement from Kai is sometimes it's not about having the answers but trusting the one who does was unlike anything he'd expected from a student known more for her athletic prowess than her philosophical insight. After a beat, he cleared his throat, the smirk replaced by a curious frown. Miss Trump, that's a nice sentiment, but how do you justify it when so many people have suffered and question why their prayers go unanswered? Isn't that a challenge to faith itself? Kai took a breath, steadying herself. She wasn't new to difficult questions, her life in the public eye had prepared her well. That's a question I've asked myself many times, Professor. Faith doesn't mean the absence of doubt or struggle. It means walking forward even when you don't have all the answers, trusting that there's a bigger plan beyond what we see. Her voice carried a quiet conviction that surprised many in the room. It wasn't arrogance, it was the humility of someone who had lived through trials and found strength in something beyond herself. Outside of the classroom, Kai's life was a constant balancing act. Early mornings on the golf course, hours of study, and the constant pressure of public attention could have easily overwhelmed a less determined person. But Kai's faith was her anchor. Growing up in a family where media attention was relentless, Kai learned quickly that public opinion was fleeting. What mattered most was who she was away from the cameras, someone who valued honesty, kindness, and faith. She often found solace in prayer before a big game or during moments of doubt. Back in the lecture hall, Dr. Hargrove found himself wrestling with an unexpected sensation, an uncomfortable stirring of doubt. For all his years of studying philosophy and religion from a critical perspective, he had rarely encountered someone so young yet so assured in their belief. It was unsettling. As the class ended, students began packing up their belongings. Some approached Kai with nods of respect, others looked at her with newfound curiosity. She didn't seek attention, but today her words had ignited something different. Later that evening, Kai sat alone in the university chapel, a quiet space she often retreated to for reflection. The flickering candlelight illuminated her thoughtful face as she prayed silently, asking for strength and wisdom. Meanwhile, across campus, Dr. Hargrove sat in his office, surrounded by stacks of philosophical texts. He rubbed his temples, the professor's usual certainty clouded by Kai's simple, unshakable faith. He realized that despite all his intellectual arguments, he couldn't easily dismiss the power of trust that Kai embodied. The weeks that followed the lecture brought a whirlwind of challenges and unexpected opportunities for Kai Madison Trump. Her simple statement in class had become a quiet buzz among students and faculty alike, sparking conversations about faith in unlikely corners of the university. Yet, the spotlight wasn't always kind. A few students, influenced by Dr. Hargrove's initial skepticism, whispered doubts about her beliefs. Some questioned whether faith had any place in a world driven by logic and science. But Kai was no stranger to criticism. She had grown up in the public eye where every word and action was dissected and judged. What mattered was her conviction. On the golf course, Kai faced one of the toughest tournaments of her collegiate career. The pressure was immense, not just because she was representing her school, but because she carried the weight of her family's legacy. Her competitors, some of the best young golfers in the country, pushed her to her limits. One afternoon, halfway through a particularly grueling round, a sudden gust of wind blew her carefully lined up putt off course. The ball veered, missing the hole by mere inches. Frustration flared within her. She could feel the familiar sting of doubt creeping in, questions about whether she was truly good enough or if she deserved the opportunities she'd been given. In that moment, Kai closed her eyes and whispered a prayer she had learned from her mother long ago. Lord, grant me strength not just in victory but in every step I take. She took a deep breath, steadied her grip, and focused anew. Her faith wasn't a magic spell to erase obstacles, it was a source of resilience. That day, she finished the tournament with one of her best performances yet, not because everything went perfectly, but because she refused to let setbacks define her. Back on campus, the tension between faith and skepticism played out in unexpected ways. Dr. Hargrove, who had watched Kai's public determination closely, began to question his own assumptions. One afternoon after class, he invited her to his office, a rare gesture, signaling a desire to engage beyond the typical professor-student dynamic. Miss Trump, he started, I admit, your words and actions have made me rethink some things. You speak of faith as a form of trust and strength. But how do you handle the uncertainty, the unanswered questions? Kai smiled warmly. I don't pretend to have all the answers, Professor. Sometimes faith means embracing mystery. It means knowing that even when life doesn't make sense, there's a purpose we can't always see. The professor nodded slowly, a flicker of respect in his eyes. It's a challenging perspective for someone in a world ruled by evidence and reason. Yet, it's undeniably powerful. Their conversation marked a turning point. Dr. Hargrove's sarcasm softened into curiosity, and Kai's confidence grew, not just as a student, but as a young woman whose faith inspired even those who once doubted her. The story of Kai Madison Trump's faith and determination spread beyond the lecture halls and the golf course, soon drawing attention from the campus media and local news outlets. Headlines ranged from admiration, golf prodigy's faith inspires campus, to criticism, can faith survive in modern academia? For Kai, this attention was a double-edged sword. She had never sought fame beyond her family name or her athletic achievements, but now her beliefs were under the microscope, dissected by reporters and debated in student forums. Some questioned whether her faith was a genuine personal conviction or a carefully crafted image. One particularly harsh editorial appeared in the university paper, criticizing her for being out of touch with the rational world and accusing her of using faith as a shield against real-world problems. The words stung, but Kai refused to respond with anger. Instead, she doubled down on her principles, knowing that true strength came from patience and grace. Meanwhile, Dr. Leonard Hargrove found himself in a challenging position. Once the fiercest critic of faith on campus, he now saw Kai in a different light, a young woman whose belief didn't diminish her intellect but enhanced her character. He began to rethink the harsh line he had drawn between faith and reason. During a faculty meeting discussing the campus climate and the recent controversies, a colleague raised the topic of Kai's faith, questioning if it was appropriate to promote such unscientific views in a university setting. Dr. Hargrove surprised everyone by standing up. "If I may," he said, his voice steady and clear, "Kai Madison Trump has demonstrated something remarkable. She has shown that faith and reason need not be enemies. Her integrity, dedication, and resilience speak louder than any editorial or critique. To dismiss her faith outright is to miss the larger lesson, one of respect, courage, and the human capacity to believe in something greater." The room fell silent. His words were unexpected, especially coming from someone who had been so vocal in his skepticism. On campus, students who had once doubted Kai began to see her in a new light. Some approached her not just as a famous name or talented athlete, but as someone whose faith was a source of strength, not weakness. Kai herself was humbled but encouraged. Her journey was far from over, but moments like this reassured her that standing firm in one's beliefs, even in the face of ridicule, could inspire change and understanding. That evening, as she prepared for her next tournament, Kai reflected on the words that had once silenced the professor and now seemed to echo through the hearts of many. Sometimes it's not about having the answers but trusting the one who does. The day of the biggest collegiate golf championship arrived. Kai Madison Trump stood at the edge of the green, the sun casting long shadows over the manicured course. The tension was palpable not just because of the stakes of the tournament, but because this round symbolized something much deeper for Kai. Over the past months, she had faced not only fierce competitors but also the relentless scrutiny of the public and the intellectual challenges posed by voices like Dr. Leonard Hargroves. Yet she had never wavered in her faith, holding fast to the belief that her purpose extended beyond trophies and titles. As she prepared for her final putt, the crowd hushed. The ball lay a few feet from the hole, the perfect distance to either clinch victory or fall just short. Kai closed her eyes for a brief moment, whispering a silent prayer. Not for the win, but for calm, focus, and strength. Her hand was steady as she struck the ball. It rolled smoothly, tracing a perfect line, and dropped into the cup. The crowd erupted in cheers. Later, during the awards ceremony, Dr. Hargrove stood among the audience, clapping with genuine admiration. He approached Kai afterward, no longer the skeptical professor but a man profoundly changed by witnessing her journey. "Miss Trump," he said, his voice sincere, "you've taught me more than any textbook ever could. Faith, when lived with courage and integrity, is a force that reason alone can't explain." Kai smiled, feeling the weight of the moment. "Thank you, Professor. Faith doesn't always mean certainty, but it does mean hope, and sometimes that's enough to carry us through." Their exchange was more than a personal victory, it was a testament to the power of humility, respect, and belief. Kai Madison Trump's story became a beacon on campus and beyond, a reminder that faith and reason can coexist. That strength comes not from always having the answers but from trusting in something greater. And in that balance, Kai found not just success on the golf course, but a lasting legacy of courage and conviction that would inspire generations to come.